I preach on the podcast since I've been doing this on how generous the franchise community is. And I learned this from my very first IFA, that you could have two direct competitors sitting next to each other, sharing ideas, sharing best practices. At the end of the day, the industry in youth sports is huge. And the amount of impact we can make, we want to make as big of an impact as possible, but we don't even put a dent in the overall industry. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun, and sharing what you're doing with Youth Athletes United, how you got here, and the brands that are part of the company. So if you would, why don't you share a little bit about the brands that are part of Youth Athletes United?
Yeah. And listen, I also do really respect what you just said. It is this really interesting industry where, as long as we're all achieving the same goal, with kids and positive about kids, I'm very close with the owners of many of, would quote unquote be our competitors, but it's about being vision and mission aligned, right?
Yeah.
Yourself and 99, Soccer Shots, and a few others. So, we get along with everybody. And what we've really found is, we have three brands under our platform. We have Soccer Stars, Amazing Athletes, and TGA Tennis, Golf, now Pickleball, and Athletics. And these three brands really were acquired. They were all founder brands, right? We weren't the founders. What we were founders of is creating this platform, this idea to really, what we'd like to say, make great greater, right? So we had this vision and thesis. And when I say we, is myself and management team. We all came together. We were no different than any other franchisee to some extent. We put our own capital in along with private equity, and we bet on ourselves to say, listen, can we create this space where every kid is an athlete and they have fun while learning the fundamentals of sport? And so where we really focus our business and our vision and our strategy today is being that first sport experience, making sure it's a positive experience for the kid and the parent. Right. And so that's really the big piece. And so between Soccer Stars, Amazing Athletes, and TGA, we're anywhere between, call it 2 to 12 is really the sweet spot of ages that we want to impact. And again, it's not so revolutionary in terms of what our secret sauce is, but it's just having fun.
Right.
And you've been through this yourself. And the reality is that first sport experience for a kid, if we're getting a kid at 2 years old and 3 years old, and it's their first Soccer Stars, Amazing Athletes, where it's their first tennis class or golf class at 6 years old, and that coach isn't fun, the curriculum isn't fun, mom and dad, like, I tried it, I don't want to do it again.
Right.
Think about that, right? It's a huge opportunity if you do it well, but it's a huge responsibility if you don't.
Right.
And so we take that very, very seriously, bring a lot of fun. We have curated curriculum that's been curated for over 20 plus years across all the brands that we've acquired. And that is fundamentally at the root of what we do, is can we have a positive impact on these kids with those first sport experience? And listen, maybe we'll have some of these kids that stay with us and, they'll play soccer and they'll go on to be, great soccer players. We have a great story I'll tell you in a second. Mm-hmm. Or maybe all we're doing is we're just giving them an opportunity to create healthy habits, be active, and also decide, is that something they want to do for themselves? Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that's really important, Frank, for us in this space is we really are in the unintentional play space. And I think you can appreciate this from where you're coming from. Our goal is we want every kid to have a really good experience and try as many things as possible from the age of as young as 18 months all the way up to 6 years old. But then at 6, you want to give your child enough experiences where they can say, listen, mom, dad, I think I want to start to do this, whether it's golf or tennis or soccer, whatever it may be. And that's really at the core of what we're trying to accomplish, is give them that athlete pathway to then say, I've made this decision to do that. Because we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as parents and seeing the level of athleticism out there to say, why isn't my kid in competitive sports at age 2? And that's the exact opposite of what we want to accomplish.
Of course. And specializing in a sport too early at an age is not good for anybody.
It's not. It's the anomaly. And there's this great podcast or book called The Sports Gene. And it talks about, these kids who come from very athletic genetic backgrounds, with good family pedigree. And, you don't want to force your kid into anything too early. You want to let them really have good, positive experiences. Is the best thing that we can provide, and let them learn their way into whatever it is that they decide they want to do.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we all played sports because we wanted to have fun, right? And we want to win too at the same time, but kids play sports because they want to have fun. And we always said back in the office, back in the day, that it was the parents the problem. The parents the ones that get in the way. The kids are never the problem. It's usually the parent. So, but I want to go back to what you said earlier. It is about that experience and the pressure we have as franchise owners down to the local level. It's the coaches make a huge impact on that customer experience. Now, I'm sharing this because I know as we're talking, I'm thinking about other two emerging franchise brands that are non-sports related that I think will still relate to what you and I are saying, that there's somebody on the front line of their business that might not necessarily be their employee, but somebody that has a direct impact on the business. And we're kind of in a very difficult situation where our coaches in our businesses make such a significant impact, yet we also have sport coordinators. I don't know if that's something that you guys have done as well. So there are people that are involved at the corporate level or at the franchise level, but it's an enormous responsibility to making sure that we're delivering a consistent experience, and to flow this through volunteers and several employees makes it quite a challenge as you're getting scale. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. And so, and you really use that last part was really poignant, right? Scale.
Yeah.
Right. We want our franchisees to scale. So, we think about both of the businesses that you were in or in and I'm in. You have to be where the customer is, right? We are not destinations, we're locations, right? So if we're 30 minutes away, a parent's not going to come to us, right? We have to be where the customer is, especially those younger ages. And so if you're going to be at scale and you're going to be running 10, 20, 30, 50 locations, you can't coach everything. Mm-hmm. So your coach is your product. And that is so important. And I agree with you. You could have, let's just use soccer example. You could have the best soccer field. It could have lighting. It could feel like the greatest space in the entire world. Mm-hmm. If the coach stinks, it doesn't matter. Right. Conversely, we run classes. I mean, you'd be surprised some of the places we run classes when it comes to soccer. Like we just need 1,500 square feet of space. We have, we're in a corner of Central Park where they'll give us a place that is just dirt. But man, if we put a great coach out there, and that coach gives the parent a good experience, it doesn't matter, right? Because we're really focused on how do we unleash the kids' imagination. They're not learning. They don't realize they're learning, but that coach is everything. And so we talk a lot to our franchisees. Okay, first we have to train you. You have to be able to coach, but we don't want you to coach because the second you coach, you're coaching, you're not growing. Right? You have to be confident you can go and scale the product and scale those coaches. And we're very intentional on the type of curriculum we have, ages and stages. And we take franchisees through a 3.5 day training, in-person training. And the most important thing that we say you have to come out of there is you have to be able to know the product top to bottom. And so we're very relentless and maniacal making sure that curriculum is so good and so important, and that we have learning management tools that really get down to the bottom. We'll go do in-person trainings, we'll go do regional trainings. But to your point, if that coach can't represent you well, it impacts your business significantly, both positive or negative. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also thinking about going back to the franchisee in order for them to grow, right? We talk about the importance of scale. If they get in the weeds and they're working at the venue, then they're not going to open a second or third or fourth venue. And the only way you're going to succeed is having multiple locations.
Yeah. And it's a hard thing for new franchisees to really come into because it's their personal currency. Think about that business, right? Like it's you, when you're out at the supermarket or whatever you may be, and you run into a parent and they recognize your program or one of your coaches, like there's such personal currency. It's your personal reputation. Right. And so that coach becomes this extension of you. And so if that coach gives a bad experience and somebody kind of comes up to you and says, listen, I took your amazing athletes class, and that coach didn't deliver, like you take it really personal. It hurts your personal currency, right? And so that's what we talk to the franchisees about. But going to your point, it's really hard for franchisees to often let go, right? They'll get in there, they'll start coaching those first classes, and they'll say, and odds are nobody's ever going to be as good a coach as the franchisee, right? They care about it so much. And so they have to really, that's why we try to get them at an early stage of, you have to be able to coach. You want to get out there, we need you to be able to do it so you know it. You need to be able to jump in if you need to for a reason, but you got to be able to know that you can train other people to be as good, if not better than you, race to replace, and be able to push that product. And that's really important because, your point, 3 locations, 5 locations, you'll max out as an owner operator, right? And you won't hit that scale.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.